अगर आपको विदित से मिलना है तो you have to go to an airport and a burger shop.
इस समय शादियां होती 2 season in India, both harvesting. Post harvesting, marriage starts because that's the resource for them.
So people are just discovering something and say, hey, this looks cool, I want to buy this.
What are you saying in summary? Like, if I'm building a product for today, what is that insight?
I have seen children of abundant family doing phenomenally well and building new categories and new products.
The first thing we were talking about before you arrived is, are the products from your e-commerce company as late as you arrived? Like, तुम लेट आते हो तो प्रोडक्ट भी लेट आएंगे.
मेरे पे ठीक है यार, तुम कंपनी पे लेके जा रहे हो. This is not correct.
We're kidding. You won't put this part in the podcast.
That's where he is saying that he's late because he was managing on time.
So hi guys, welcome everyone to episode 3. I think to begin, maybe we can all like speak about what we do in 1 minute. And since we all know each other already, we can intersect and we can say different things we know about each other. The idea is just to get everybody to know who we are. So let's start with Vidit.
Hey, I'm Vidit Aatrey. I run Meesho. Meesho is...
Not like that. Not what you give in college interviews and stuff like that.
What do you say then?
So
You have...
पहले ये बताओ, I'm Vidit. I was born here. I was this kind of a child.
That's exactly what the college interview is.
You know, at this age. इस college में इसलिए गया. Like that.
Oh, achha. So I have to give something different, right?
Yeah.
So hatke.
Basically, you have to say the absolute blatant truth.
You're saying that anybody will find about your like who you are, you run something which is not on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So I'm Vidit Aatrey. I grew up in Delhi, in that part of Delhi that people don't know as much, which is Rohini. I was born in Meerut, so my entire family comes from Meerut and Hapur. So I was the first engineer in my entire family, right? So it's a
What was everyone else doing?
farming. So both my mom and dad side, like everyone, like all my cousins, most of them still do farming. And so it was a very different upbringing. When I was growing up, my dad used to tell me there are only 2 kinds of professions. One, someone who does a government job, or second, who sits on the perchun ki dukan. So if you don't want to sit on a perchun ki dukan, you better study and...
Perchun की दुकान क्या होती है?
Which is kirana shop, basically. So if you don't want to sit there, you better study and become an IAS officer someday. So all my life, I was like told this, and I used to believe it for a very long time. And I grew up, went to IIT Delhi, all of that. And when I went there, I realized the world is not bipolar, only 2 professions, and there's a lot more other things you can do. And that's when I changed. After college, went to ITC, in a operations heavy role, very different, and from Delhi to Chennai. And I went into a factory where everyone in the factory used to speak only one language, which was Tamil. And I used to go every day in the office. There used to be a morning stand-up meeting, which was about an hour in Tamil. And I'm standing there, like everyone knows English. I'm saying, why don't we speak English? Because we are in Chennai, so we have to speak in Tamil. So I used to stand there and have no idea what's happening. But I was forced to kind of pick up some bit. I would still say like the first 2 years of my career, it was very interesting because I was put into the most uncomfortable parts, right? Like you sitting in Delhi, you can do all the nice stuff. Like you can do good analysis, you understand Excel, but like managing a lot of people, going to a place where you're uncomfortable or everything, language, food, over time, figuring out your way around this. So I think it was pretty cool. If I look back, at that point in time, I got connected to a friend who was in Bangalore. Bangalore was coming up, like your FlipKarts and your in movies of the world. So moved here, and eventually in 2015.
Same college, no?
Yeah, same college, but like I think
Which year passed out?
2012.
Yeah, it is like 9 years.
Yeah, it's much later. So I think then I came to Bangalore, and like everyone else, got bitten by the entrepreneurial bug because there was so much to do. And we started Meesho back in 2015. So now coming to like what we do at Meesho and why did we even pick what we are doing. So we started in 2015 And doing this because we realized that e-commerce was coming up and everyone was talking about, hey, why, how all of this is moving online. But e-commerce at that point in time was mostly smartphones and white goods selling online, right? Like, which was not India retail to some extent. Small businesses were a very core part of India retail, was still primarily offline. And 85% of India retail happens via a lot of these long tail unbranded small businesses. So we said, we'll bring them online. If someone asked me how, I had no idea, but we said we will bring them online. And that's when we started Meesho. So yeah, we will complete 8 years. Been a very, very interesting journey. Now we have close to 140 million consumers who buy from us annually across all kinds of categories from about 1 million small businesses. So that's all.
Super. So I think Mr. Kishore Biyani, everybody knows broadly, you're an icon of selling both online and offline. And I think each one of us growing up in one way or another has some way or in one way or another experienced one product that you might have made or another. So maybe even though we have seen you, we don't know so much about your childhood, where you were born. I've met your family, I've come to your house, I've met your daughters and stuff like that. But maybe you can give us a minute or two.
Yeah. So I'm Kishore Biyani. I formed a lot of consumer businesses, called our group the Future Group. And I was born in Bombay, born and brought up in Bombay. Studied commerce, was interested in marketing. So used to follow most of the advertising that used to happen then. And then build my own brand of trousers to start with. Started with fabric business.
How did you first think of starting a trouser brand?
I think that was way back, and
Which year?
I would say 91 or something. I was supplying garments. I was supplying fabric to the garment industry. That time the brands were Charagdin, Double Bull. They were very different brands then.
What year was this?
This must be 87. And people were just moving into from tailor-made to ready-made.
Vidit was not even born.
And
Yeah.
so I feel odd one out here in terms of seniority. So,
He's halfway there. I'm a little bit lower. He's up six.
so it was a different world. I was born to a very conservative family. We come from Rajasthan. Family was very religious, pious. I was an atheist. Always, I was known as the black sheep of the family. And contrarian thoughts on everything in life. And so I thought I'll not join the family business. We had a small wholesale fabric trading business that time. So when I joined, when I just graduated, I did some course in marketing. I did my CA entrance. I think in 5 years of college, I went to attend a class only once. One class attended in 5 years.
Do you think there is some kind of a correlation between rebellious kids or kids who have grown up with more insecurity than usual to how well they do later in life? Do you think more rebellious, insecure end up doing better?
I believe that today my children are born in abundance and to more democratic parents. I was not born to democratic parents, and we were born in a shortage era. So I think shortages or less availability does definitely makes you work harder and make you expand your mind and thoughts. So I think abundance can create something else, but what we got was not abundance in any which way. He also doesn't come from abundance in a way, no?
I don't. And by the way, to some extent, I agree with what you were just asking. I believe, like, I come from a family, or I would say even when I was growing up, I was a very compliant child, right? So whatever my parents tell me, I do it until I come to college and suddenly I have an independent bent of mind. And now I question everything. So until then, I would say like my parents would make me do that puja every day. And I've been atheist since college, right? So everything changed because until then, right, like I only saw a very small part of the world and I thought this is right and wrong and everything is very black and white. And as you get exposed to more and more stuff, then some people are okay and you can say rebellious, I call it independent, but I feel it happens and it's definitely one input to doing something crazy, right? Because if you do something which is by the book, it's very hard for you to challenge what has been happening for years.
But only one thing I observed as a common, like he passed out in 2012 and you are somewhere in 80s. But still the feeling of like I have grown in such a constrained, disciplined family, because how I see, and that might be that's not the truth, but children so these days we say that no, they have a lot. Might be you have the same feeling. Hey, 2012 kid is have a lots of access of information, infrastructure, better college, better education, but the feeling is similar, and that doesn't matter. Like my grandfather was always saying that when I was I was studying, I was crossing river, walking this much kilometer and things like that. And when you were studying, he was saying that you guys have everything, and we believe no, this is also tough. So I think that feeling is very common.
But do you think that is true then? Like, say, my parents, my mom was a music teacher and my dad was a bank employee. But do you think people who grew up in middle class upbringing, like myself or under, feel more insecure about things like money, things like having the freedom that can be associated with money, and hence they overcompensate when they grow older?
I think money matters a bit lesser here. It's obviously when I was growing up, coming from a lower middle class family, like if it's a very top of mind thing to solve, but I don't think that leads to it. Like very hard for me to attribute to it.
Right.
I think if you'll go by data, it's very hard. Might be if we can share our perspective, but from the rebellious point of view. But I think that's not true. I think it was very regimental in nature. When you're middle class, hey, you have to study. There is only one way. You have to get into like some job, nice job. Otherwise, your marriage will not have things like that. I think those are the main issue. Might be for us, it was never that issue, and that's why you can see.
But by data, I'll tell you, we all invest in startups, right? Like each one of us. I didn't realize this for a long time, but very organically, at least we formed a filter. By we, I mean different funds I'm a part of. That if somebody was a very entitled guy, if somebody was the son or a daughter of a very rich man, you would have this thing in your subconscious which would make you wary of investing in that startup.
Same. I've had the same thing.
It's not true in a way. I believe it's nature of a, but they can excel in something else which nobody else can do. Some categories they can excel much better. So we have dwelt a lot into understanding this, but I think abundance creates something else and shortages create something else. But rebelliousness definitely creates something. Without being a rebel, you can't, because as a rebellion, you like to destroy something and create something. No, I went into business, created a fabric which became quite popular. It was called stonewash at that time. Then denim as a fabric came in.
How did you create this fabric? Like,
I think there was a fashion which was going along, and I did some course in weaving, and I was very interested in textile fabric as such. So
how old were you when you were doing this course?
21, 22.
Was it a thing back then to do a course in weaving and try to make a fabric?
I was trying to do everything. I was not a great student or had inclination towards studies. My parents never knew whether I passed or failed also. So we were a joint family. We were 13 of us in our age group. My father was 6 brothers. And if we all came and one of them didn't sleep also, nobody would notice. So we lived very, very differently then. So I think, idea was to create something. And it started with creating that fabric, supplying to the garment industry, building denims, then building our own brand. And then it kept on going on and on. So in terms of creation, it became like building brands, building retail formats, then getting into NBFC, logistic business, insurance, so multiple things, and then investing into a lot of entrepreneurs.
Right. When was that moment when you really scaled? Like when you guys became really big? Because I remember growing up, like your brands were everywhere. And every one of us knew you. You were on the cover of magazines. Like you were talking about that book, na?
Ever like one book, it was kind of Bible at that time. So to study the retail.
I think if you look at, if I look back, because I'm in a different state of mind or in terms of business at the moment. So I have done it might appear that I have done what people do in 3 generations. I created and I destroyed everything. So creation and destruction, and maybe if there is a chance to create something more. But it was a process which was fantastic, because first was destroying your old thoughts, destroying your parents' thoughts, creating something out of that, and then destroying your thoughts again and again. Because we went into luxury and we went into masses. We went to the lowest end of the population with a store format called Aadhaar, which is below 50,000 population. And we dealt with the highest end by creating something called food hall. And in terms of departmental stores, central to brand factory. So we catered to a lot of audiences. And there was a lot of learning from like Hindustan Liver at that point of time. How do you create brands at every segment of the population? So I think branding was something which interested us and me. So we laddered many brands in the retail formats. And so it was a journey. I would say 30 years, we compounded at 30%. So it was for 30 years, we did grow every year. And but now it's a different journey. So another experience. So you become more philosophical than doing anything. Yeah.
It's an incredible journey.
And out of all the things you could have done, like why, like Big Bazaar and Future Group, like why? How did you arrive at this is the thing? This is my calling. Was it just weaving thing which led to this?
Before creating Big Bazaar, I had a format in mind that will create a marketplace for brands. So Central was originally conceptualized much before Big Bazaar for me. But then Big Bazaar came around. I started visiting the bazaars and the haats which used to happen in small towns. So people used to take the markets. So we thought, why can't we create markets with that hustle and bustle in a city? I had not seen Walmart then. I had not seen any other retail format. So we thought, let's try this. And so then the idea was to build scale. So we opened 3 stores in 22 days so that we could build some volumes and some scale. So it was a market, hustle, bustle. We thought there should be a button brush effect. People should meet each other. There should be crowd. Because crowd can only get crowd. So it was a different experience then.
But we must say that, sir, in this country, somebody who has thought of organizing retail and started at that scale, and people started believing because your format was started working. I think several format and come destroyed will come again, futuristic and all, but you have given that genesis or retail can be organized.
Like the kids say today, he's like the OG of commerce.
I call it father
Original gangster.
father of organizing retail.
I think
100%.
I think
because we have learned so much directly in that.
हर चीज का एक टाइम आता है और कोई निमित्त बनता है. Somebody becomes a catalyst to do that. So I think we
have done that for retail for sure.
We got that opportunity to do it, and I think once you start looking at from consumer lens, you can create something much more, because you are looking at the consumer and create something, not looking at yourself and creating something. So we created that consumer understanding, as a group, we have an organization which is called Future Brands, wherein from the last 15 years, every 6 months, we do a Bharat Darshan and we record every societal change happening in the country.
That's very important.
We record every lyrics written in the country, anything which becomes popular, we make it a point. So like when we used to get huge crowds in Big Bazaar stores, we went to Tirupati temple to understand how to manage crowds. So India is a fascinating country.
That's a box, like release this box.
And what did you learn from Tirupati?
Tirupati is unbelievable management. Crazy. How to manage crowd was something. How do you create that lakhde ka rasta, make people stand in the queue, give them water, give them everything, make them patient. And so you learn from everywhere. India has all the experiences which you can experience and learn from.
Wow.
Incredible.
Learning Tirupati to retail, huh? Should have been the title of the book.
My first retail store experience where we got inspired was Saravana stores in Chennai.
Where they sell idli and all.
Everything they used to sell in one single place.
Saravana Bhavan, right?
Saravana stores.
Not
Stores,
Saravana
because
Bhavan.
stores big.
They used to sell utensils the most.
Oh, I was thinking of Saravana Bhavan.
No, Saravana Bhavan is a food.
That's a food thing, but the store is huge.
Huge.
Appliances, everything.
Yeah, everything. So Big Bazaar was in fact conceptualized from inspiration of Saravana more than anything else.
आप भी बताइए अपने बारे में.
Yeah, like everybody.
So
here.
I have to like preface this for context. Me and Sujeet hang out a lot. ठीक है? Like We were together yesterday. We traveled together. If he was not married, people would have the wrong idea. But we end up spending, I think we travel at least once in 2-3 months somewhere together.
Yes, I think last 1 year.
Yeah.
Several.
Yeah.
Great.
So I know him very well.
Yeah, but this,
Hmm.
let me say where I come from.
Yeah.
Like Vidit was saying that I'm from Meerut. So I come from a place called Bhabua in Bihar. It's a very small town. I've grown up there, studied there till 12th in Hindi medium from Bihar board. And I don't know how I have gone to IIT, because I came to know about IIT only in, people get the 12th, we call it intermediate.
Yeah.
So it was a part of college at the time. When after 10th, you go to college, and it's not 10 plus 2, it's a intermediate, then BA, BSc, whatever. So I have from Hindi medium converted to English just for exam. Somehow landed in IIT Delhi. I never planned to go to IIT Delhi. I wanted to be in ITBHU because वो मेरे को लगता था घर के पास है, वहाँ हमारा लैंग्वेज भोजपुरी चलता है और I will be the king of that campus. Something happened. उसको बोलते हैं ना कि स्टार कुछ और बोल रहे थे, तुम्हें जाना है दिल्ली. I landed in Delhi. And that was my first big city. And I have exposed to like, okay, school और college ऐसा होता है. नहीं तो हमारा 10th plus 2 हमारे स्कूल का नाम था अटल बिहारी सी उच्च विद्यालय भभुआ.
What was it? सबसे बता.
हाई स्कूल को उच्च विद्यालय बोलते हैं. So हिंदी इज उच्च विद्यालय. So landed in IIT. तो वहाँ इतना कुछ था कि पढ़ाई छोड़ के मैंने सब कुछ किया.
Well, the same thing happened to me also. So many things I never saw. Even like I had a smaller school, I would say, until 12th. And when I came, मैंने कहा ये सब क्या होता है? I have no idea, right? Like you have all kinds of sports, you have all kinds of extracurriculars to do. So you get exposed to this right after college or right after school. So people go crazy. So I can totally connect with this feeling.
So India में people play cricket, badminton, कुछ ये सब तो खेलते ही हैं. वहाँ जाके देखा एक स्क्वाश भी था. And you will not believe, even billiards and all, I was spending so much of time. By second or third year, I was in the institute team. So even I was playing billiard, pool. So like I said,
Still got good marks in IT.
no, that was. तू करेगा क्या? कोई ना कोई कुछ तो कर ही लेगा यार, छोड़ना. But at that time in Y2K, when we were passing in 2003 or 2001, 2002, the whole job scenario was so bad. कैंपस में आईआईटी में इवन कंप्यूटर साइंस वालों का 2.5 लाख 3 लाख का जॉब नहीं लग रहा है. Otherwise, people go out, all the MNCs come to campus, they take those first like electricals, computer, all this, and then rank wise, and even you are last from the bottom, you'll get some job. But उस साल तो किसी का नहीं लग रहा था. And it was a kind of कि यार करे क्या. And then I had somewhere I thought कि यार पढ़ा तो है नहीं, थोड़ा सा पढ़ाई कर लेता हूँ और. And I remember कि पिताजी बोलते थे कि यार आईएएस कर लो. मैं कहा अच्छा आईएएस करें क्या. मैं कहा लग रहा है कि इससे कॉलिंग फॉर आईएएस. आई वांटेड टू बिकम अ यूपीएससी. फिर गया वहाँ पे देखा कि देन यू हैव टू टेक सम ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट like history, public ad, geography. You have to study all the general knowledge. And then you have to core subject like physics, math. As a science boy, you can choose one. Otherwise, you can choose any subject. मैं कहा सेट ये सब भी पढ़ना पड़ेगा क्या? Then I spent almost 6 months there. And then decided कि ये तो नहीं हो पाएगा. And this is not my interest. Somehow, I decided to join some small firm where I can learn. Some of the friends connected me to some person. He has agreed to take me as a co-founder at that time, KPO. In 2000, I'm talking about 2004, 2005. So we started a KPO, taking a project, delivering the project. We were like 25, 26 people and doing that for almost like 2.5-3 saal. And in 2008, recession came. No project, no money. And Sachin in 2007, he was my 1 year junior in IIT in same hostel. उसने बोला कि बैंगलोर आजा, हम लोग स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं। मैं कहा स्टार्ट तो हमने भी किया है। स्टार्ट तो हमने भी किया और बैंगलोर मुझे नहीं जाना। आई वॉज इन लव विद दैट दिल्ली, कि दिल्ली तो छोड़ना ही नहीं है। आई वॉज सेटल देयर। तो मैं कहा अच्छा। Then I think he got married early in 2008. He called me for his marriage, and we decided to close KPO because कोई project था नहीं, पैसा था नहीं. Then we decided to.
Still your dentist, ना?
Yes. So उसने 2008 में बोला कि एक बार घूमने तो आ, early 2000. मैं कहा कर क्या रहे हो तुम लोग? बोलता है बुक्स बेचते हैं। मैं कहा अच्छा, अमेजन टाइप से? बोलता हाँ। मैं कहा लग तो अच्छा रहा है यार, चल मैं आता हूँ। Then I came in 2008. मैं कहा आऊँगा लेकिन देखूंगा, पता नहीं, I was not able to imagine कि एक, because he was हमेशा he was a very silent boy, थोड़ा सा अलग से था कैंपस में। मैं कहा ये क्या कर रहा है? तो मैं कहते कमिटमेंट नहीं है और दूसरे वाले से भी मिलूंगा तेरे, बिकॉज बिन्नी was 2 years junior to me. मैं कहा उससे भी मिलूंगा, उसके बाद देखेंगे कि क्या करना है कि नहीं। एंड आई वाज लाइक कि मुझे तो दिल्ली रहना है। तो बोलता एक बार आओ ना, देखेंगे, बिकॉज ऑल द सप्लायर्स ऑफ बुक्स एट दैट टाइम वर दिल्ली एंड दे वर नॉट, देयर प्रेजेंस इन दिल्ली वाज नॉट देयर। मैं कहा चलो, एंड समहाउ लाइक इट हैज, I like the business model, and then decided to again went back to Delhi because I have to. So I was taking care of all the business, supply, operation. Then I went back to Delhi, solving those problems. सारे पब्लिशर से मिलके उनके सजेशन, लेकिन नौकरी तो तुम्हारी लगी नहीं होगी। तुम यहाँ क्या कर रहे हो, ऐसे कुछ होता नहीं है, बुक्स कोई ऑनलाइन नहीं करेगा हिंदुस्तान में। जो भी रहा, आई थिंक at that time we were inspired by your journey, and then that's where I'm saying that we were studying your books also. बिन्नी बोलता ये बुक्स पढ़ लेते हैं, इसमें जरूर कुछ होगा कि रिटेल कैसे सॉल्व करते हैं। तो रात भर में मैं कहा एक पब्लिशर को बोला यार वो किताब दे दे, मैं आज पढ़ के उसको। And then I finished that book.
And FlipKart started 2008?
So started in October 2007. I joined in 2008, but I was like दोनों ही थे।
हाँ।
और कुछ था नहीं वहाँ पे। मैं था तो वहाँ पे look something, when I went there it was 6-7-8 बुक्स का ऑर्डर आता था। उसमें कुछ फ्रेंड्स के होते थे 3-4, और so yeah, so the journey has started. By the way, when I joined, it was not even a company, it was a proprietorship, because उस समय ना पेमेंट गेटवे तो मिलता नहीं था ऑनलाइन के लिए। So Sachin's father was a trader in Punjab, Chandigarh. So he had some balance sheet where कि उसको CC Avenue का वो मिल जाएगा। That's why he was a proprietor. So 2009, it got registered, by the way. FlipKart got registered in 2009, but it started in October 2007. I came on board in 2008. So we started our journey. I taken care of all the supply chain, operation, category. First 4 years I was managing all these things, and then after that mostly focusing on building supply chain capabilities, operation. So I started e-card within FlipKart in 2010. Yeah, we have built that. That journey was amazing. So from 0 to 15. So I left in 2016. I started Udaan with Babho and Amod. Again, Babho and Amod, I met Babho in FlipKart. He was CTO of FlipKart. And Amod was CTO. And Babho, I know, he was my senior in IIT Delhi. So we were a good friend. But he was also working in FlipKart.
ये IITs की बात क्या है? इतने सारे एंटरप्रेन्योर्स क्यों होते हैं वहाँ से? I'm saying
IIT दिल्ली से होते हैं, बाकी IIT
But by the way, all of them are same.
भी होते हैं ना?
All of them are same hostel also, by the way. In Jwala, right? Vaibhav Jwala, Sachin Jwala.
सचिन ज्वाला के हैं।
हाँ।
वैसे जोमेटो वाला कारा का है, लेकिन अब तुम रिटेल तो ऐसा लगता है कि ज्वाला, ये भी ज्वाला गए हैं।
पर क्या करते क्या इस हॉस्टल?
I have no idea. Maybe अब बाद में I'm connecting the dots now.
Is it because of the network of alumni that it helps IIT?
But IIT Delhi has that thing. मुंबई भी है।
But help करते हैं alumni, like people who
पहले
have...
तो नहीं करते थे यार।
ये हमारे टाइम पे तो किया है। But in my case, like all of my angel was done by a lot of IIT Delhi.
बन गया था ना हमारे टाइम में, तो ना फंडिंग थी, ना कोई जानता था कि ये होता क्या है।
फंडिंग भी क्या होता है?
हाँ, फंडिंग एंड VC फंड होते क्या है, nobody was knowing at that time. So I think उस समय नहीं था. That's why I'm saying 2012 में तो मैं खुद एंजल करने लगा था. We got some exit by that time.
So सुजीत बहुत एंजल करता है, like पागलों की तरह. How many companies have you invested in?
Around 150. Yeah.
150 में how many have become big? Like serious scale.
An Academy is that, even this Grofer, now it's a Blinkit. और भी हैं scaled वाले, 5-6 तो होंगे.
Off late he keeps talking about coffee and
Yeah, I've scaled this coffee.
Third wave.
third wave. Investing in something else, coffee?
I have now, because I believe there are too much on one sector, tech. So I found something in India, food will also scale, QSR. So from last 1.5 year, I'm experimenting like third wave. So when I came there were nothing. In last 1.5 year, we have scaled, I think somewhere now they are valued around 200 million, something like that. And it's good because they're profitable business. That's what I'm saying. It's good to see that some business is profitable and they're making money. Then I have a view in India beyond tier 2, tier 3 city, like Domino's kind of business can be built. MACD also can be built, but I found some great entrepreneur who are already building. I'm backing them. And I believe they will open 2,000, 3,000 stores in this country. So I am experimenting on that. Same view I have for the South Indian food because of, if you'll see Rameshwaram, and I'll give an example.
Yeah, I've been there, yeah.
So they cut like 7,500 bills a day.
Crazy.
And one store does 5 crore. So this is like 10 by 10 kind of, 10 by 15 kind of store.
Store in a hole.
Do like 4.5 crore a month.
A month.
50 crore one store of 10 by 15.
And with decent margins and all of that.
Decent margin. I'm just saying it's a 70% gross margin. They must be doing EBITDA on monthly level, generating around 30% minimum.
So Vidit's wife is again a very successful entrepreneur. She has this brand of clothing called My Bliss Club.
Bliss Club. Yeah.
You want to say something?
Yeah. So basically, she started this business about 2.5-3 years ago, and like it's a very mission-driven business. What she's trying to solve is she's fundamentally building the first women-focused fitness brand, right? Because in India, most fitness brands have always been associated with men, right? Like no one solved women-focused problems. So she started this 2.5-3 years ago, and she wants to kind of build a culture of movement, in her own words, right? So she wants people to move a lot more. Fitness is not just about having like some crazy six-pack abs, but like everyone, whatever you do every single day, even if you walk 100 meters, you're moving. And how can you make that journey more fulfilling? So she started this 2.5-3 years ago, and it's been doing pretty well.
So I see her every day because we live in Sydney. Religiously, they like she comes every day.
Yeah?
So, yeah.
Gym mein.
It is positioned as a body positive brand.
Yeah, I think it's one of the principles is that like, hey, how do you again go against body shaming, which happens again a lot in India?
So we had a brand, we built a brand called All, little larger. That became very big. Actually, it was the most profitable business we ever created. But majorly we were in wovens, not in knits as much.
So before I met Meenu, like 1.5-2 years ago, me and Vidit had gone for a conference. So I had never met his wife, and हम लोग ऐसे बैठे थे. We had 1 week to kill, and we used to spend a lot of time having breakfast, lunch, dinner every day. And he would describe Meenu to me. The thing about Vidit, right? He's very certain about what he wants in life. And there is a weird kind of contentment. I'm talking not professionally, but personally, which makes him, I think, more complete as an emotional human being, which is fairly unique. Because many people I know, including myself, we live through a lot more ambiguity when it comes to forming our notions about these subjects, where you're so certain about what you believe in and what you want.
And so early in life, I think that's something gifted.
And you're the youngest amongst all of us. और सुजीत की बात ये है कि उसमें कोई filter नहीं है. अच्छा, like
Which is very good for a podcast like this. Yeah.
यार क्या ना
हाँ, anything to anyone. Like कुछ भी बोल देगा. I'm thinking कौन सा story बताऊं where we both don't get into trouble. It's not that he will get into
No,
trouble.
but I want like वही मसाला story है ना. Like we don't want a safe story. We want an interesting story.
We'll talk about a friend of ours, okay, first.
हाँ.
तो हम दोनों गए थे रियाद, like last month, 2 महीने.
February, yeah.
February we went to Riyadh. We were there for one entire week, and one very nice gentleman invited us to his house for dinner, and his family. His name was H.A.
Hani Mohammed.
Hani Mohammed. Hani. तो हमारा एक दोस्त है. You say the next part. तू बता.
So again मारवाड़ी और वहीं मुंबई तो एक होता है ना एक्सेंट हिंदी बोलने का. So then Hani Mohammed, everybody is Hani. He started calling him Hani. Hani.
That friend of yours.
It was so funny when you're like, hi Hani. Bye Hani. Good night Hani. I was like, his name is Hani. हाँ वही तो बोल रहा हूँ. Hani.
Yeah, but Riyadh was such a fun experience. So
It was very good.
हमें किसी ने बोला रियाद में सब कुछ बदल रहा है. Great investing opportunities. You guys should go check it out. So we made a group of friends and we went to Riyadh for a week. And we met people in different departments, in business, in government, all of that. The scale of the projects they're doing is madness. वो लोग एक villa project बना रहे हैं called Roshan. You know how many villas they're building? 45,000.
45,000 in one project.
45,000.
In one project. They're spending $3 trillion on that NEOM.
That I saw. Like some city, very different city.
It's a line city, call it line. So the dimension is 200 meter by 150 meter.
मेरा एक प्रश्न है अभी यार, आप अब इतने स्केल में देखते हैं सब कुछ चीजें. We all see visit abroad. We all have done it, and then we want to do something like that in India. So that itself, sometimes is it a great thing or a...
I think the dynamics and the demographics of the two countries are so different. I think Saudi Arabia probably has less than 10% of our population.
Not even
10%.
36 million.
5%, like 3%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Less than 3%, 2%.
Kind
It's
of
crazy.
like plan like they
We
do.
can't plan, but I'm saying the imagination goes wild, na?
Correct. I think for that point to arrive, we need to have kind of like reached a certain GDP per capita. I think.
Yeah, but you know, when we started going abroad and सब stores visit करना चालू किए, सबसे मिलना चालू किए, we would have met every entrepreneur who has created something in the world. वो scale देख के, I think we start thinking about that, ये करेंगे इंडिया में, and then we start making mistakes. I was coming to that point.
I agree with you. I think
Have you seen a lot of examples like this? Like where people get inspired too much and say कि हाँ ये
पूरा इंडिया
US में चलता है, इंडिया में भी चलाएंगे.
इंडिया में ये प्रॉब्लम है. सब मॉडल वहीं से आते हैं.
But don't you think जो US में होता है यहाँ पे lag के साथ होता है, but होता है? Maybe with a 15-year lag.
कुछ नहीं, कुछ तो होता ही है, but because human beings are human beings.
Like I'm talking about e-commerce at large. I'm talking about...
But e-commerce also in India, since the subject is getting discussed, इंडिया में इतना लगा था कि कुछ नई चेंजेस भी आ जाते हैं उस दौरान.
Correct. Agree.
हाँ मतलब जैसे Meesho type थोड़ा है कुछ यूज.
Yeah, but we omit...
Localization has to happen. I agree. Like sometimes people try to like copy paste with the exact T, which I believe
Like if
does
you
not
were to
work.
say we are in broking, asset management and stuff like that, there have been examples very similar in the US for a long time. If you talk about Ola, Uber has been there for a long time. If you talk about Airbnb and the replicas
It's a
in India,
space. Now I'm telling it's a financial services, or the other one is mobility. So they're natural things. What is that new thing you can do in India with an Indian reference point is something which should be more interesting in India.
do you think it's not about how you tweak what has worked elsewhere, but create something? Is that what you're saying?
You are asking for like Instagram of India, some Google of India, something like that?
मेरा पर्सनल मानना है कि India can only prosper if we are able to create value addition in the economy.
Of course.
By just selling commodities without value addition, because value addition इंडिया में घर पे होता है, अपने किचन में होता है या घर में होता है.
I believe that.
तो वैल्यू एडिशन जब तक नहीं होगा, जब तक इकोनॉमी ग्रो नहीं होती है.
So which is manufacturing, processing.
नहीं, ब्रांड बनाना.
Okay, brand बनाना.
ब्रांड में वैल्यू एडिशन होता है. सबसे ज्यादा वैल्यू एडिशन ब्रांड में होता है.
अगर मैं आपसे ये पूछूं कि consumer facing brands in India which have scaled, let's say to about 1,000 crores in sales, what are the first 5 brands that come into your mind, and why do you think there are so few brands?
आई थिंक ब्रांड्स बन रहे हैं. पहले तो 1,000 करोड़ के ब्रांड होते ही नहीं थे. अब तो दिखने लग गए. तो
कौन से आते हैं आपके दिमाग में पहले?
like we were able to build around 4-5,000 crore brands. So but now you look at boat, जैसे आप पर्सनल वेयर में देखेंगे, आई एम लुकिंग एट ब्यूटी में भी कुछ ब्रांड्स आ गए हैं जो स्केल हो रहे हैं. Even Mamaearth has scaled to a certain level, but not 1,000 crore, but they are all getting there. So new age brands are happening, but old age brands, though, I think Levers, Nestle, they have all built brands. Yeah, look at the brand Maggi has built, na?
Yeah.
It's crazy. One single category, one single product will be
But
a
they're all
$1 billion
somehow like
brand.
the ones which have really scaled have been the foreign brands which have come into
But
India.
that's why India maybe, but India, I think America has done well. ITC, I would rate it as an Indian company. They are building up a lot of brands.
Good, bro.
तो ब्रिटानिया इन अ वे काफी इंडियन ब्रांड बना रहे हैं. तो इंडिया में
पार्ले है.
बहुत है. पार्ले है ना, अनबिलीवेबल ब्रांड है ना.
So I think for this
Amul, I think is the biggest brand India has created ever.
Yeah. I think for this conversation, let's not focus or fixate upon e-commerce alone, but commerce at large, because we have
But digital commerce is a very interesting subject. And ultimately, digital, to buy anything, it will be a digital use, in whether it will influence you, whether you have seen the brand digitally. So digital is a part of your life now. उसके बिना commerce हो ही नहीं सकता है.
You think that's
so
the
true.
future and physical is going to die?
It's not about physical or digital.
I think digital
influencing हो ही गया. अगर आप physical buying कर रहे हैं तो भी digital का influence तो है ही है.
हाँ, मतलब Instagram पे फोटो देख के you decide what to buy in that local market.
It's a part of your life now. I don't see them as two separate things.
So you think in the future for these consumer facing brands, let's say for example जो आप बना रहे हैं, the 4 or 5 brands that you were talking about, what is the split right now of people buying them online and what is the split
So
offline?
firstly, I'm not building, my daughters are doing. I'm maybe a mentor. They are, because I don't belong to that generation who think digitally. The last thing digitally we did was to build a whole thing around data. Uske baad mein we did Big Brother 2-hour delivery, which became very successful. We got a break. We started Future Bazaar when FutureBazaar.com when FlipKart had along the same time.
Yeah. I
So-
think a little bit delay, but yeah, around 2000.
Around the same time, 2008, 9, yeah.
Yeah.
So we attempted digital. Being physical, attempting digital was the biggest mistake, because you can't think digital. People who are born digital think digital. So we were born physical, and thinking digital was adding one more layer, but that doesn't work.
And what do you think the recipe is now? What could work?
You have to think digital now.
But also have a physical presence?
Physical, you sell through every medium, but you have to think digital. Everything. When we used to build brands earlier, it was newspaper advertising, television advertising, वो सब आते थे. Now you can't build a brand on newspaper advertising or television advertising or outdoor. अभी तो brand बनाने का तरीका ही पूरा बदल गया है.
हाँ, अब तो digital marketing, targeting digital.
So you have to think digital. The consumers are different. Cohorts अलग होते हैं. सोच अलग है.
So even before we talk about e-commerce or digital buying something, why do you think, from a very psychological standpoint, why do you think somebody buys a product? What in their psyche instigates them to buy a certain product? Why do some products do better than other products? And do you think, see, I'm not talking about the essentials that we all need, but I'm talking about shopping in the sense of the word that we know it today. Do you think the power dynamic in a way shifts from the seller of the product to the from the buyer to the seller each time somebody buys a product? Like, why does somebody buy a product and why does a product work?
So I'll tell you, like, at least what we see now, right? Like now, because of social, there's massive FOMO in the world, right? So there's, people call it inspiration, but a lot of this is FOMO, right? Like no one wants to be left out. We see lots and lots of shopping gets inspired by social media, right? Like by Instagram, by this and that. One of the very common products that people use on the Meesho app is people take photograph and they search that same photograph and buy. And most of those photographs come from Instagram.
So how big is social media as an influencer part of Meesho's overall sales?
I would say it's very hard to attribute, because in many cases people come in.
Indirect?
But it's a lot, by the way. Even the way we design, what kind of trends are coming up, what kind of things you see, everything is driven a lot by what data we see on social. It's a big part. Something direct attribution we can see when people are really searching that image and it's an Instagram image. So that we know, and that's a large part. But even otherwise, we see everyone deciding what to buy and what not to buy, driven a lot from social media.
So you're saying there is this one central body in a way of influential people who decides what is cool, and then everybody decides they need that product in their life.
To some extent, yes. Right? Like that's happening. Now people are seeing a lot of celebrities. Now they are also seeing these influencers come up.
And how high does that chain go? Let's say we look at an influencer. Who does the influencer look at? Who in turn does that person look at? Is it a corporation which is setting trends that are cool, or is it organically evolving from people?
So at least from what we see now, it may have started with being very concentrated, but now even like I see like Bliss Club starting, right? Like they leverage influencers quite a lot. That entire brand was, by the way, built on Instagram. Like everything was built on Instagram. And they found people, so now they're influencers that people can relate with. Hey, this influencer looks like me, wear the kind of things I like, and I follow that person. And some of the influencers are very original kind of products they choose and they recommend and so on. So it's not like very concentrated that, hey, this person looks at this and that person looks at this. I feel now it's very decentralized to some extent, and everyone knows what kind of person feels like a body double to me, right? Like, hey, this person has the same beliefs, same liking, same kind of body, and I like this person. I want to buy what they good look in. So I feel that's happening.
At the very core of this distinction, you're saying people are mandating or people are governing what becomes cool, and it's not the brands or corporation.
Correct.
People are leading and brands are following.
To some extent, now I see this to be very strong. And I feel this is only getting bigger and bigger.
And I believe there is a reason for it. We'll see, like he was saying, the social media, especially these video platforms, let's say you can say TikTok, Joes, whatever, like Instagram, Facebook, there are so many distribution, big platforms, where more than hundreds of millions of users. ये जो tier 2, tier 3 cities और इनमें वहाँ पे 6-7 घंटे लगाते हैं इस पे दिन भर में. And they like those videos. It's very hard for us to relate to why these guys are watching so much. And ultimately, some style, some product, something they pick, and they wanted to look like it because they spend so much of time. So I think, like he was saying, that social, I think it is becoming a mainstream. I was just telling you, when we are solving this predictability, hey, the goods will going to be delivered within 1 day, 2 days, or in 1 week, depend on the location and all. I think this generation, for them, it's given. They are not thinking about, hey, how I was talking about, hey, payment gateway integration. आज बोलोगे लोग बोलेंगे पागल हो गया क्या, ये कब था, ये तो प्री इंडिपेंडेंट टाइप की बात कर रहा है. I think people now are wanted to look good, wanted to look different. If you are asking who are the influencer, if in their society they know some guys who have like 1,000 people follower, 10,000 follower, and they are getting inspired that I can become an influencer. They are endorsing the brand, local brand, chips, some shop, something, and they are innovative because they wanted to look different in every video because they are creating reels also. So what they do, go to mall, go to changing room, just change and take one video because they cannot spend that much of money. See, I think now they endorse in a different way.
So is that the future instead of marketing on newspaper,
I
TV?
think the way we look at it, because being a part of the old economy, we believe that whenever a dominant media or communication method changes, everything changes around it. So when there was a newspaper, then the radio, then the television commoditized, build brands. Now that's social media and social interaction. And I think mobile phone makes you very individualistic because now at every home, everybody has a different breakfast, everybody has a different meal. Earlier, the family used to sit together and had one kind of meal. Things have changed and we have become very individualistic because of everybody has a personal phone. So things are changing around it. So every person has a personal preferences of an influencer. You need so many people now to get influenced. Somebody will get influenced by something, somebody will get influenced by something. Earlier it was mass advertising. I remember we made a movie and there was a particular dress which was made by Biba, and they still sell that dress after 14 years or 15 years. And that virtually that dress made Biba as a brand also to a great extent. So earlier there were other influences, but it was commoditized to a great extent. But today things are different. It's getting individualistic more, and then you have to find that kind of users together and make them into a group. Yeah.
So, for the future of building a product, for the new consumer brands that are coming up today, is the go to strategy just that? Paying influencers to promote your product?
No, I think for brands, I think now it's a very core part. Like if you don't
Like, say,
align
a
with
brand could
influence,
also have a message. Like, I could be saying, my brand is sustainable, my brand is XYZ, my brand does a certain kind of fashion. Does the brand try to build their distinction through that brand message? Or is the lower hanging fruit going to the influencers who have the widest reach and paying them money to adopt the brand in a way?
it's happening a lot. And by the way, it's just not about finding the biggest influencer. As I was saying, now influencers stand for different things.
Yeah.
So you have to find someone who is very close to the philosophy that the brand wants to build.
So,
By the-
influencer is the intermediary between a brand and the customer.
Yeah. By the people have become very conscious. They look at everything. Hey, who have you picked? What does this person believe in? You say sustainable. I see this person using a plastic water bottle. I don't believe this person's sustainable. My point is like everything, every detail somehow matters now
Right.
because people spend so much time. So it's just not, you can't go, and that's why influencers work, and very small influencers are very effective because it's just not go to the celebrity with millions of followers. You have to find someone who connects with the principles of the brand.
If you see, I think I just earlier, like you said, the unidimensional control channel, even like newspaper, TV, and we were controlled. Because of this social media revolution, multiple access innovations are happening, multiple access. It's very hard to pick one trend. Some trends are working, let's say tier 1, some tier 2, some like high paying capacity, some Gen Zs, some millennials, and it's very hard to pick trends. But if you'll see the platform which are responsible for this social media, let's say Instagram or Facebook, now they are creating a fund. So to engage these influencers, because if the commercially if they will not be engaged, it's very hard for them to come again and innovate. So now they're creating a fund for it. And somehow they are creating economics. Currently, those are broken because the people who are finding those numbers of influencers, they are creating those infrastructure, but currently it's broken. So these are big innovations are happening, how to create that fund so that all these influencers at multiple access keep engaged with the platform. So I think, and I see retail as becoming a byproduct of that.
And do you think celebrities, like I'm talking about old school celebrities, Bollywood, cricketers, do you think that connection has somewhere gotten lost because people have assumed in their minds that they are for sale in a way, and rarely ever do they believe in the product they are selling? And will the trend in the future be that brands do not go to Bollywood or cricket, but they go to more micro influencers in a way who are more authentic?
I think it is happening slightly, but I think that's still not the prominent reason. Like the reason people go to influencers, because earlier, by the way, it was binary. Either you have a big celebrity or you don't, right? And until you become large enough to afford a celebrity, you can't do it. Right. Now people can start on day one. You could be a very small one, you find a small influencer who connects with your philosophy. And people keep graduating. There's still very few influencers who have the same following as celebrities. So what you're saying still hasn't happened. But I believe, by the way, will happen soon. In the next few years, some large celebrities will have the same following as, some large influencers with same following as celebrities.
You guys do a lot of marketing.
We do. And we are seeing, by the way, like...
marketing budget per year? How much did you spend last year?
It's a large amount. I won't mention the number here. But I'm saying it does not matter.
I want you to say...
No, but I won't mention still.
But let's say a Meesho spends something like 2,000 crores a year to market. What I'm wondering is, how do you decide the allocation of that money? What have you learned? Say, for example, last year you sponsored IPL and this and that and stuff like that, and actors and stuff. What have you learned from that experience, and what will you change going forward?
Yeah, so the one thing which we have always been very effective is we are very local. we go as local as possible because our audience base is very heterogeneous. Unlike tier one, which also is also like very, if you look at Instagram, looks very homogeneous, right? Like tier one tends to behave very similarly. As soon as you go beyond, it does not. So we've always been very local. So we go to Andhra Pradesh and Telangana and pick an actor or pick an actress or a celebrity that connects with that person.
Right.
Something we have always been very local, and we have seen that to be very effective. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's capital allocation, right? You spend X amount or you spend Y amount, you see where the ROI happens.
Yeah.
We've seen over time, like, it's not that you need to have a celebrity all the time, right? Like, so we keep changing celebrities so that like the company's image is not attached to one person, right? Like that is also a risk at the end of the day.
When you use a celebrity,
Huh?
how much does your ROI go up while you're using a celebrity versus not using? Is there a tangible difference?
Very hard to estimate, yeah. Super hard. Like if someone asks you this question, it's all anecdotal. It's like people build stories around it, but no one can estimate.
Which was the biggest hit of marketing last year? What worked best?
So our Diwali campaign did very well, which is where we did localization. So we had different celebrities for different parts of the country. Right? Like we'll had Saurav Ganguly for West Bengal, we had Ram Charan for a certain state in South India. So I'm saying it's basically we went very local and we saw that to be much more effective than have one person who appeals to all the country, because we realized it's close to impossible to find one person who appeals to everyone. You can find cricketers, but they still appeal to males and not to females. So it's very, very hard. So I'm saying we found localization to be very effective.
Should we eat off and then continue? Khalid, you want to say something?
No, I just think that even celebrity, they are investing like significant time to become influencer. If you'll see the trend, like cricketer is showing I'm going to bed, singing, showing someone or you'll see all those, and they are like serious amount of time they spend. They also understand those trends. So they wanted, even in that space, they're competing, they wanted to become one of the largest influencer.
In our space, in fintech, there are some people. There is Sharan, there is Rachna Ranade, there is Think School. I think these guys are, especially people like Think School. I think there is a big divide between the quality of content they're doing and other people are doing. I don't know how they've arrived at that point. I'm not an investor in Think School. I'm not promoting them in any way whatsoever. But I think the future of information dissemination, even about finance, is going to move from traditional channels to people like them. Like, I don't think the day is far. 5 years from now, somebody will not be watching news. They will be watching Think School for their news. And I wonder how this entire equation changes and who becomes celebrities of 10 years from now. It'll be quite interesting to see how the world changes, though.
I think celebrity, I think earlier, because most of the followers were related to celebrity. I think in my mind, if I like cricket or let's say some sports, it's a skill game. I think it will not going to change. Still, I will going to prefer that. But how commercially I can associate, I think might be it will be different. But lots of things I like because that guy is doing. I wanted to be seen like him, or something like fitness or some of the clothing styles. But who will sell those products might be different.
I think, like we were speaking, let's get some insights from sir.
We want to know the past, the present and the future of commerce in the country. और आपसे अच्छा कोई बता नहीं सकता. हाँ.
You have seen all.
I think हमने इतना whatever 30-35 years we have worked, there is a lot of things which you learn during the journey. And journey is, a lot of people believe India is infinite market because of the 20% of the world's population. And I think India is a very, very interesting country, the most heterogeneous country you can ever believe in. I'll give you an interesting example of a temple or a religious economy. India में small shrines से लेके बड़े ऐसे लेके 50 लाख टेम्पल होंगे.
आराम से, कम ही बोल.
50 लाख.
हाँ.
10 लोगों को फीड करता है हर टेम्पल. 5 करोड़ लोगों को काम करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. टेम्पल इकोनॉमी. तो हर इंडिया में ऐसी माइक्रो इकोनॉमीज बहुत है जिनको काम करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. And I believe 20% of India or 30% of India in some sense lives on government aid. तो when you look at the entire market, आप एक एक चीज काटते जाएंगे तो आपको दिखेगा मार्केट इतना ही है. And what unfortunately the reports which the consulting companies make, I was reading all the data कि e-commerce will now अभी 18 करोड़ लोग यूज कर रहे हैं, 57 करोड़ यूज करने लग जाएंगे 26 तक, और उसके बाद इतने लोग यूज करने लग जाएंगे, मार्केट इतना हो जाएगा. I think ये कभी होता ही नहीं है. And to make that happen, it can't happen with commodity play, or it can't happen with where the value addition is not there. So my theory, which I wrote it also a long time back in my book, is I call that India is divided into three parts. Three India, consumption के हिसाब से, India 1, India 2, India 3. India 1 is the consuming class. Anybody who has a domestic help is for me is a consuming class. Because consuming matlab not basic consumption, but some value added consumption. India 2 is the serving class, which makes our lives better. The drivers, the helpers, the peon, the watchman, the liftman. And for every one India 1, there is 3 to 3.5 India 2. And unfortunately, India 1 doesn't give enough money to India 2 to make them consume discretionary products. And then there is India 3, which is farm laborers. They live on aids and factory workers. उतना पैसा है जितना, तो अभी कंजम्पशन सिर्फ इंडिया 1 है यहाँ जो वैल्यू एडेड इकोनॉमी का कंजम्पशन करता है. And that's not huge.
कितना बड़ा है इंडिया 1, इंडिया 2 and 3?
I would say, like in a city like Bombay, it's a very interesting definition. Until some years ago, 25% of people used to live in apartments. I would say 10 years ago. Today it might be 35. 5 to 8% people lived in chawls, and balance lived in slums. So India, I think every city will represent some way or the other.
But if you had to aggregate the country, what do you think?
I would say 11 to 13% would be the consuming class.
India 1.
India 1.
Which is 20 crore.
Which is around 20 crores. And it might be growing. And I think it's growing. And what pace of growth will depend, will determine everything. And unfortunately, we live in that community only, that India 1. जो भी इक्विटी इन्वेस्टर भी आते हैं वो भी इसी कम्युनिटी में घूमते हैं. उनको लगता है दुनिया बहुत भयंकर है.
रिसर्च करके चले जाते हैं वो भी.
उनको तो 3 दिन आना है. सब होशियार हो गए फंड रेजिंग वाले. उनको कहाँ घुमाना.
I wanted to see India.
तो इंडिया जो दिखाना चाहते हो दिख जाए. इंडिया में सब कुछ है दिखाने के लिए.
तो जो दिखाना है दिखा दो.
जो दिखाना है दिखा दो. And that's why I always say that there was a movie which became very popular during our time. There was a movie called जाने भी दो यारो. And there was a song called हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन. तो आज भी वो गाना चलता, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन. India, we want to succeed. But I think India is 20% of the world, 18 to 20% of the world's population. For the whole world, I think it was the European economy, the American economy which consumed, which made the world grow. Then the Chinese economy which made the world grow. Now it's India's time. India will have to learn to consume much, much more than what they are consuming. And that's what will drive growth. Yeah.
Some of the numbers, if you'll see, sir, and I'm not contesting ki A, B, and C, they're a bucket. And the places we have come from, I totally agree. But some of the number, if you'll see, if it's true, I think it's mind-boggling. Let's say India's GDP, when I was passing out in 2003, was around $500 billion. Right? 20 साल हो गए. And now it's, I'm just taking what the number published, it's around, let's say I'm taking 3.5 trillion. 7 times has increased in 20 years. Let's say farm GDP, which is 17-18%, I think that's the number, 16%, 18%, which comes around 550-600 billion at this level. But that farm income only happening in tier 2 beyond. Because उसका 5% भी tier 1, tier 2 city में नहीं जा रहा है. वो या तो गांव में जा रहा है, या तो छोटे शहर में जा रहा है, 80% of it. And but those numbers, even because no tax and all, PPP, I think it's around, if you'll see, $800-900 billion kind of impact it can create.
But
those are huge numbers.
Value addition क्या है?
Value addition नहीं, लेकिन वो पैसा जा तो रहा है ना.
Value addition नहीं है ना इकोनॉमी में. कितने लोगों के बीच में है वो?
बट पहले तो वो भी नहीं जा रहा था ना.
अब ठीक है, आप जोड़ते जाइए, बट अल्टीमेटली यू नीड एक्स अमाउंट. द बेस्ट कंजम्पशन हैपेंस व्हेन द इकोनॉमी इज अराउंड $7,000 to $11,000 per person.
Earlier it was 4,000. Now people say that 5,000, 6,000
I would say
per capita.
per capita. So
But do you think that's the main metric that matters? Per capita GDP?
Capita
matters
a lot.
और ये बताइए कि even when you're calculating per capita GDP, you're taking total GDP and dividing by population?
No, so some bit of it you remove. So it's around 2,700 currently.
How do you arrive at that number though? Do you take the total divide by population?
And average people use, which is 2,000, is with that.
That would skew everything, right?
But yeah, the distribution, which is what you come
that's why
to.
I'm saying that there are so many economies within that economy. Which
Yeah, government said that 2,500 recently, but उसमें like in GDP plus debt वाला जो recovery वो निकाल के फिर उसको calculate करते हैं, फिर
But
divide
इसमें भी problem ये हो जाएगा कि you take out Ambani and Adani from the top. It's a completely different.
It's a massive Pareto.
It's a 10 or 80. Let's say
India is very, very interesting. There is another thing, another statistic which I want to. India has 2 crore weddings a year. मतलब 1 crore weddings, 2 crore families. We produce 2.5 crore children every year. So, and our wedding economy is 15 lakh crores. Average spend of 7 lakh rupees in a family multiplied by 2 crore families is 14 lakh crore.
14 लाख.
Why do you think कि यहाँ पे कोई aggregation नहीं हुआ है in the wedding industry?
बहुत aggregation हुआ हुआ है.
But there is not one dominant player or 3-4 dominant players.
India is so heterogeneous है, तो दुनिया चल रही है.
Customize नहीं कर सकते.
And वो जब बच्चा पैदा होता है उस दिन से शॉपिंग चालू हो जाती है ना.
But do you think it's an opportunity wedding?
People have made that into a business.
But
Look at Manyavar as a brand now. It's built on wedding.
Actually, Manyavar is wedding aggregation.
And there might be many, many brands. Every city has brands.
But still, if you look at 15 lakh crore scale and then you look at Manyavar, it doesn't feel still proportionate, right?
जलान एक बनारस में.
जलान तो हमारे खास
हाँ.
मित्र में है.
अब उनका देखिए सिर्फ वेडिंग ऐसा चलता है पूरे.
वो बनारस का मार्केट वेडिंग का मार्केट है. पूरा यूपी वहाँ पे खरीदने को आता
वेडिंग का
है.
market.
तो वेडिंग इंडिया में कंजम्पशन इज ड्रिवन बाय लॉट ऑफ सोसाइटल इवेंट्स. लुक एट द हार्वेस्टिंग फेस्टिवल. वहाँ पे कंजम्पशन यूज्ड टू हैपन ड्यूरिंग हार्वेस्टिंग, व्हिच टॉक्स अबाउट योर एग्रीकल्चरल इकोनॉमी. पैसे आते हैं जब कंजम्पशन होता है,
काफी.
एंड उसी टाइम शादियां होती है.
तो आप नेक्स्ट ट्रेंड क्या देख रहे हैं?
I think like IT business, the technology business created around how many people? Nearly crore plus families would have got into that business, and that created a lot of consumption. We need next round of
What do you think
economy.
next round will be?
I think we'll have to participate in something. I think a creative economy is a big economy, which is creator economy, creative economy. India can excel there also. We are fascinated by the generative AI. Very, very fascinated. Imagine in retail business, in a grocery business, somebody will tell, I want to make this item for the next 5 days. The retailer will give exact quantity of what you want. So the packaging will change, everything will change. So any new technology will bring in so many changes, and the whole ecosystem around it changes.
Also, another question. Like, I'm going to come to both of you and ask what are the trends for the future and what do you see changing. But since you three have worked so much in this space, at the core of it, एक product क्यों बिकता है? Like, why does something sell and why does something not sell? If you had to provide insights from that, what would you say? Like, maybe you can start first.
I think a product sells because it fulfills the needs of the customer. So what we used to say is there is a daily want and there is a daily need of a customer, and there is occasional want and occasional needs. So your product has to fit in somewhere. And there are occasional consumption and there are daily consumptions. So your product has to solve the needs of that customer, the wants of that customers. Secondly, product sells because you are fulfilling some vanity or some ego of that person if you are selling a high value product. Yeah.
So how do you recognize these needs? If I am somebody who wants to sell a product today, how will I get data on what cures somebody's ego or vanity? What is his need? How do I go about figuring out what product to design?
I think the society is changing, the world is changing. You can look at what is getting popular. So like we always thought when OTT came in and COVID made it happen that people watched the longer form of storytelling, nobody believed that storytelling can be told in 10 hours or 20 hours. Storytelling was supposed to be within less than 3 hours. it changed the whole market. I think the whole content market, the cinema, the multiplexes, it will undergo a significant change. So what to produce which the customer or the audience likes? Today, the entire Hindi Bollywood film industry is struggling. There was a movie, I'm told, it didn't run even for a day. They had to take it out, and it's happening. This kind of mishaps are happening like crazy.
Yep.
And so, what do you create for multiplex as a content? I think everybody is getting into the drawing board.
By the way, this is true for retail very, very strongly. I've seen when the channel changes, what sells also change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always.
Absolutely.
Right? So because as soon as the channel changes, like what you discover first, like for example, earlier when you used to go offline, you will touch the product. That was a big part of what you buy. Now you can't do it. Right? So suddenly pricing takes a big, like I have seen online, pricing suddenly is a lot more important because touch and quality is somehow it's very hard to pick. Now merchandising, inspiration, photographs, social matters a lot, which was not there earlier. So as soon as channel changes, like your what sells changes like completely. Now internet was a big thing, mobile was a big thing. Now AI, I don't know what that is, right? Like AI will also kind of change some of these channels.
Absolutely.
Right? Meta was supposed to be, now it doesn't feel like it's going to happen anytime soon. But if that happened,
VR has big potential in shopping.
Like it should be. Like if medium becomes large, by the way, then the channel, especially for shopping, will change. But then what you buy will be very different.
Like if these guys like Meta, with all the access to so much information, is spending $15 billion or $16 billion a year on creating that ecosystem, would you say it's likely that that will be the future?
It's very hard because historically, if you see, whenever big technology shifts come, they generally don't come from large companies, they come from startups, right? So it's very hard that they will know what people need. Meta will know, right? Like like every single time all of these technologies have come, they've never come from existing large incumbents, right? So I find it unlikely it will happen. It may happen, like who knows? But historically, it's never been.
Right. And what do you think, like I was asking him, like, what do you think is working today and what do you think will work tomorrow when it comes to selling a product?
So I think my assessment is this whole thing of serving need has become a lot more of serving aspirations now. As I was saying, most people come.
Society is changing.
So both people now have a lot more discretionary income, as people say. So it's not that when they want to buy, they buy. Now people open the app and they want to look like this celebrity or look like this influencer because they feel it's much better. And you fulfill their aspiration, they feel much more happier. Right? So now I think some bit of the consumption started to happen.
And we're still talking about that 15-20 crore population of India.
Like, so for example, just in the last 12 months, 14 crore people have bought on Meesho. So I'm saying it's a large...
They go to a much larger audience.
Right? So now it's a lot of people who are... Like the India 2 is there. We have a lot of India 2 users on our platform.
So you're saying, is Meesho predominantly India 1 with some India 2, or is it like India 1 plus?
I would say both.
Right.
Both balanced. We don't have... India 1 is a very broad segment, right? So we don't have the top 10, 15 million, I would say, but everyone else after.
Do you see India 2's discretionary income rising?
So it's still small. And that's why our job is to, like, within that small wallet, still help them fulfill those aspirations. They still go on Instagram, they still follow someone. And they say, hey, no, I don't have the same amount of money. Can you help me fulfill this aspiration in a very small budget? Right. Which is what we solve. But they also have aspirations, very, very strong ones.
No, we had a very interesting, another thing, like India 1 consumes in their lifetime. I would have consumed at least 10,000 SKUs. But India 2 or India 3 will be 200 SKUs. India 2 would be, I don't know how much, but not more than 400, 500 in their lifetime. So that's rising.
Correct.
I would say India 2 would have consumed only 100 SKUs at one point of time. Now it's rising.
Going up.
Now they want from that to a toothpaste to this to a cream to everything. So that's happening.
So you're saying it makes sense to build products which appear to be aspirational today. And what do you think will be tomorrow?
It's very hard. I just feel like a lot of this, as per capita goes up, this 2,000 goes to 4,000. Most of the increase is happening in discretionary, not like people fulfill their non-discretionary needs anyways, right? So it's going to come here. So I feel that this aspiration thing is going to compound and grow non-linearly going forward. Like everyone is doing it and everyone's doing it individually now. So earlier it used to be a family affair. Now everyone's fulfilling their own aspirations separately. Everyone follows someone else on Instagram. Everyone else has different things that they aspire for and they're fulfilling it again and again. And our job is to basically make it affordable, right? Like how do we make them achieve their aspirations affordably is what we focus on as a company.
Right. You want to go next?
Yeah, like it's a very complex thing. Like if you'll see,
What trend is working today? So if I'm building a product for today, what do you think I should keep in mind? And what trend do you think will be there tomorrow?
I think today, if you'll see, it's how you are. If you are talking about commerce, it drives from your unit economics. Am I right? Currently, it's making lots of sense to optimize, let's say, on supply chain, sourcing, inventory cost, and everywhere the technology goes. Hey, there's a festival, these SKUs go. So currently, we are picking up which SKU, how, what, and all those things. We are building a technology infrastructure, consumption, predicting कि hey, next time, next year 40% it will grow in this channel. But how channels are changing, it's very different. Like I was just describing, Gen Zs are thinking in a very different way about their consumption. Millennials are definitely a bit thinking, and the other like traditional consumer who's like price sensitive, quality, touch and feel. I'll give one example. Gen Z was saying that size matters too much to me. I will not going to buy online
किसके बारे में
like
बात कर
this clothing size. So I will not going to buy online because for me, I am buying and then returning again. I want to look exactly fit like the celebrity. So for me, the price sensitivity is not that much. For me, these and offline gives me that flexibility. So I'll see here, but I wanted to buy the what I like offline because that's where instant if I am able to buy offline. So it's a different kind of key. I never imagined because there are so many policies where saying that, hey, I will return within 5 days, 10 days, again fulfill. Well, no, it will not matter. For me, it takes lots of time. Either I should order 5, 6 sizes, then my money get stuck. The insight is we have to be watch out where the consumers are spending most of their time. And we have to build some of the products for according to that channel. So if you'll see, most of the evolution, and sir will agree, has happened technology on backend, rationalizing the technology for applications like what to give to consumers, like pricing search, things like that, SKU search, cataloging, things like that. All those investment has happened in last 15 years, I can at least say that. But nobody knows which channel is picking up. So I think that's where I'm saying now the time is to find a consumer, their money, where they are liking, what's they're liking, like for fashion. Logically, it said, let's say social media is one of the most leading channels. But for consumer goods, like white goods, is it the performance? Is it the support? Is it the pricing? I don't know. Let's say buying AC on the social media is very hard to imagine. Mobile phone, I'm very clear because it's a feature-led, camera-led. Camera is dominating, let's say, mobile as a category because that's the consideration set for new generation as well as for everyone.
Say your son grows up in 5 years and he's shopping online.
I don't know. He will buy like within game. He's playing so much there. He can click. I wanted to order this. I wanted to look like this. I don't know. Or it might be that's not the mainstream.
Right. Another question I wanted to ask is when aggregation happens even in between platforms, like soon maybe we will get to a point where Meesho is selling everything that is available. Amazon is selling everything that is available. Udaan, FlipKart, everybody. Will it come down to curation and legitimacy in a way? as to how I pick which platform to shop on?
So by the way, it ends up being what your value prop is, right? So, for example, Amazon is very, very focused
Tell
on.
me about everybody because you're in this. Finish with Meesho. What is Amazon's value proposition?
Amazon is like convenience. So I want to stand for convenience, right? So they will make sure that everything that you order, you always feel like it comes faster here as compared to anyone else.
But the flip side is that often the product is fake and the quality checks are not at par.
It could be, right? And that's, by the way, it's a thing that they'll continue to improve. But one thing they want to stand for, which is this convenience, right? And everything else, if you ask me, is secondary. They'll continue to make some improvement, which not, you have to achieve excellence here. But they want to do this. So they want to stand for it. They will not sell anything where this somehow gets diluted. Because the brand, right? The value add that people remember you for is that. When they come to Meesho, people believe that this selection I will not get for a more affordable price anywhere else. Like they have to believe this. And I will get the largest possible selection in the price points that I can afford. That I also have to believe. Now, everything that we do in our business basically, I don't know. I think it's a category-wise difference and maybe.
What is Flipkart and Amazon's distinction?
I think mostly you can.
For a long time, if I have to tell you the truth, I bought stuff on Flipkart out of some stupid notion that they're an Indian company and nationalism. But now, after Walmart deal, I don't see any distinction between Flipkart and Walmart. I would just as well buy in Amazon as I might in Flipkart. How does Flipkart distinguish?
I think the DNA of the company I can definitely talk about. I think we were building the company, then it was like how to give a best value proposition. Let's say price, service, let's say COD, building a logistic around that, something like that. Am I right?
So would you put that in the category of convenience and say Flipkart thought there is room for two players?
Pricing, price, like it's a good price. That definitely price has a lots of aspects. I'm not going into that, but offering what Indian consumer wants. I think Amazon has a, like he's saying that, convenience, but that audience in bucket, even in bucket A, is very narrow.
What do you think of multiplexes? This is a good segue into a very interesting question.
I remember you owned a bit of multiplexes.
Yeah, no? I still have. I've reduced my shareholding, but I have about 2%. And I keep asking a lot of
PVR. Right?
I was on the board of Inox for a long time.
Now they've merged PVR and
so you know, you should tell us this, yeah? Like you are interrogating us. I think you should also answer some of these. You tell us like, what's going to happen in multiplexes.
I'll tell you truly.
What were your belief and why you think?
So my tryst with multiplex companies started many years ago. Okay, like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I had a very, very bearish outlook of them.
6-7 years ago, pre-pandemic.
Much before pandemic. I shorted them to begin with when, say, PVR was at $1,300, $1,400. There were a couple of policy changes which were happening. The foremost of them being, it was in court that people will be allowed to bring outside food and water and drink it inside the multiplex and eat it. And food as an income source for multiplexes is really high as 40-45%. Then it changed pre-pandemic when I went long these companies because my reasoning changed to India too, like Sir mentioned, is growing. In terms of entertainment for a family of 4 for 3 hours at sub 1,000 rupees in a safe air-conditioned environment, the alternatives were not many. One could argue cricket is an alternative, but I thought as India too grows, the relevance of multiplex will go up, and they also become like these distribution hubs, which I don't think they have up until now. But if people are going there so often, it gives them the opportunity to do other kind of marketing, branding, advertising, all kinds of stuff. Where I sit today, I'm confused. Like everything else in my life, I'm shrouded in ambiguity on both sides because when I talk to people who say when I talk to somebody who's the CEO of Hotstar, like he's now the Bangalore guy, right? Like Sujeet has become the CEO, the ex Google Pay guy.
Sujeet is also our neighbor.
Yeah, so he would give me an outlook of why OTT will kill traditional cinema. But then I talk to somebody like UFO movies, which is also another company I've invested in. They manage the technology around projecting a movie on the screen. There I start to think the number of screens available, the density of screens in India is still like much, much lower. Like I would say in the US, there is one multiplex screen for 30,000-40,000 people. In China, maybe for a few 100,000 people. In India, there is one screen for many, many hundreds of thousands of people. And to a large part of India, watching a movie is still going, you know, that truck aata hai na, uspe screen hoti hai in the villages, and then everybody gets together with no kind of choice as to what content they get to watch. So for me...
But on this last point, like, as Kishorji was saying, like anywhere where you use the population number is somewhat, right? Like per X number of people has a lot of India 3, which skews this metric. How do you get to the right number?
Secondly, people believe that India 2 wants to come into India 1. I don't think so. Societally, they don't look down. They look down upon us.
I also think that's the right... I feel like we follow, or we try to follow on the path of the West in China so much by thinking that everybody moving into cities, all of this is good for the economy and growth and all of that. I personally believe for many reasons, fragmentation is actually a model that could work better for today than it did for China 20, 30 years ago.
So Nikhil, I want to say something on this multiplex thing. You know, when mobile phone came into the picture and everybody wanted to buy a mobile phone, where did the budget come from? They had to reduce some spend somewhere. And the biggest impact came on fashion. And we were a part of the fashion business then. And people were changing phone in the first 6 months. Everybody was changing phone much, much faster. Now it's slowed down. So what has happened, if you look at the multiplex industry, that money of spend, which was supposed to go to multiplex, is happening to restaurants now. People are spending 2.5 hours, families sitting together, friends sitting together and spending that 1,500, 2,000 rupees per head. And that money is clearly seen. People don't want to watch content.
Can I ask you another question here? Like the listed restaurant chains, you take Jubilant, you take Westlife, take the franchisees of big Western counterparts, right? Like McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, all of that. They all command a significant premium to the market, right? They trade at, let's say, they're earning 100 rupees, their valuation is 7,000, 8,000, in some cases 20,000, all of that. But the unlisted space in restaurants, what happens if somebody comes in and aggregates? Like we spoke about Saravana, Bhavan, there are so many of these in India, right? If somebody comes and aggregates a bunch of these chains, where the total sales comes up on par with, say, the Western counterparts, which have
Domino's,
franchises.
like this.
Do you think there is an arbitrage between the valuation of this to that?
But they don't need money, na? Ramesh, why will you need money?
They refuse to talk.
Impossible, because if you are a good business,
come on call.
You don't need money at all.
But the question is, does a business often need money in order to scale? If that is the case, with more money...
We don't want scale.
No.
We all assume that everybody wants scale. I also thought so similarly.
Okay, I can...
want scale. We expect everybody...
From last 1.5 years, I have spent lots of time on this. Making money businesses, especially in this restaurant, most of them make money, especially the good one whom we know. 80%, they don't want money.
Yeah.
They don't want to expand.
And why don't they want to expand?
They're simply saying that our quality will deteriorate. I don't want these headaches. I don't want to dilute. They don't want.
I think there are two categories. There are
a few people who are defensive, but I'm sure that people are aggressive also.
Okay.
Right?
By the way, people whom you, let's say, Vidyarthi Bhavan, go and talk to that owner.
And yeah, but like you see the experience, such a big brand, and you go there and you have 100 people are standing outside. That guy does not know how to monetize the asset.
It's the experience.
Where are the people going?
But I'll tell you why are temples created where there is no pain, and because without pain there is no gain. There are queues.
Restaurants also have.
The temple, if you get,
Have you gone to Rameshwaram Cafe?
I have.
Like I go to weekly, and every time get amazed. Sometimes it's 200-meter line on the billing.
You go to Indranagar? I go to the one in Whitefield, which is a much larger place. You will get to eat.
I understand, but Indira Nagar is a like icon.
Hey, but see, at the
Matha
core
tekne
of
jata
it,
hu.
right? Like, I get the point you guys are making, but I like to believe that we live in an aspirational, capitalistic
Correct.
ecosystem.
Not as much as what we think.
But to a certain extent, we are
Yes, yes,
capitalistic.
there's no debate on that, but it's not as much as we think.
If somebody has the opportunity to expand and be a bigger winner in the cycle of capitalism, I think human tendency will persuade him in that direction eventually, at whatever pace, to whatever level of magnitude.
New food, like new thing is showing, but like I don't know the reason.
Really, I have my own experience in restaurant business. We came in too early, like a silsila movie. It was a little ahead of time.
I like your movie analogy.
Yeah.
So we've done most of the chain in Bombay. Bombay Blues, Noodle Bar, Copper Chimney,
I got it.
Sports Bar.
Ahead of time.
Lot-
Ahead of time.
Both ahead of time, and how much money we lost, we only know.
But now I think
Restaurants-
it's a
now,
right
but restaurant की problem is the per capita expenditure of building a restaurant is very high, and the life of a restaurant.
I'm
is
talking
very
about QSR now. I'm not isn't bullish
low.
about
QSR, then you have to be very successful.
Is that why the franchised model with so much standardization do better?
Then all this industrialization of a
Yeah, that's a QSR.
Yeah, not all QSRs in a way.
Most of it.
Yeah, most of it.
Let's say if I'll add Rameshwaram, for me will be the QSR. If I'm going to scale it.
Oh,
That's how I'll see.
yeah. But it's, you see, Rameshwaram also gets an extra space outside for which he is not paying, where people are standing and eating. So
I think there is a novelty attached to that. Whenever you see
वो
a
second
line-
जगह वैसा मिल ही नहीं सकता.
जो कहते हैं ना उन्होंने बताया ना शुरू में भीड़ से भीड़ आती है तो वही
That
है
is so true. Like, if I had to open a restaurant, मैं सिर्फ 5 शेयर डालता अंदर और बोलता बाहर वेट करो.
Yeah.
That would probably give me more business than having 40 chairs in there.
Correct.
In a weird way, that works.
Never know. But food is a very interesting. Indians are loving to discover new
I'm
food.
telling you that this coffee chain, 3 years back or 2-3 years back, no investor is willing to invest because they believe कि ये तो नहीं चलेगा हिंदुस्तान में. Now we shall see what happened. I don't know why it is. But wherever these stores are opening, doesn't matter it's Bangalore or Delhi or Mumbai, only it's 4-5 cities. They are going crazy. Still finding that pattern. And it's not
about that. It's about people spending time. It's a social interaction.
But earlier
People are doing business.
it was no, but nobody was believing it. It's about at the verge of closing.
And coffee, something is one of the byproduct of whatever other activities you are doing. And maybe sometimes the main activity, but you then get into the other activities.
I agree with you 100%. I'm also like a small investor with him in Third Wave and Hati Kapi and a couple of coffee places. When I was reviewing coffee chains and I was trying to do it as objectively as I could, the difference between the West and India is in the West, people are going into a coffee shop to actually drink coffee.
Yeah,
The culture of buying a coffee and walking, especially in New York, is such a big thing that the financials work out for them. Here, if you sell a coffee at 200, 300 rupees and people have to sit there for 2 hours to consume it, and you have to pay for the real estate, the numbers, you look at it from a different light altogether. So I don't think in that particular instance, especially in coffee, we can equate what happens here to what happens in the West, to your earlier example, because I don't think we will copy what they're doing.
So you're saying it's harder to make money here in coffee in India?
Very hard.
100%.
Restaurants have just started making money in India.
Yeah, but they are
Not
started
easy.
making money.
But
QSR are making good money.
Good money.
But
is
early to say that.
Early.
But let's see.
तभी कोई सोचता नहीं ना पैसे के बारे में. How much money did you spend on your wedding?
On my wedding, I spent very less. Yeah, this was like long ago before
When you get married?
I had raised any money. So imagine like मैंने कहाँ खोपचे में जाके शादी करी थी.
When you get married?
I got married in 2018 beginning. 2018.
वो तो अभी है. Sujeet?
I got in 2012, but I was at that time 31-year-old.
कहाँ की थी शादी?
Delhi. My wife is from Haryana.
Would you like to say something about your personal life? Like, just, you've seen so much in life. If you had to advise Vidit, who's new into this whole family, marriage, doesn't have kids yet situation. He also has decided never to have kids.
You also.
No, I haven't. At least yet. I don't know.
You also need some help.
Projecting.
Lost cause. बहुत late हो
नहीं
गया.
उधर आए पूछेंगे ना हम लोग.
हम भी पूछेंगे. Correct.
I personally believe philosophically life is a series of events. And you have to enjoy, relish, cherish every event which comes in. Some events will be very heart pleasing and some events will be not so great. But I think the fun is having all kind of events. So if you look at my life, like we grew at 30%. Life was unbelievably, it was up only. So the lower side was much lower.
This is like a tough question. I don't know if I should even ask it or not. But in that 30% growth cycle, let's assume 2 or 3 things went wrong, right? Like, what do you think? I believe that in life there are 2 buckets of things. One you can control, another you can't control. For what you can't control, there's no point like breaking your head over it. Just as advice to us who are like entrepreneurs or budding ones and people around, what do you think went wrong? What caused it? And if you had to do it over again, what might you change?
So I think as a personality, I'm a little impulsive person. So what went wrong is basically growing on debt and not building a strong balance sheet. So that is one thing which was apparent. Third, my daughter just started studying Shakespeare. So other day, some 10 days back, she came out of the class and she called me up. I had one of my best day of my life. I studied a concept of storytelling called the tragic flaw. So every character which Shakespeare built had a flaw in that, and he used to highlight that flaw and that character. Then I started looking at Ramayana, Mahabharata, and everybody had a flaw, but flaw in India was never highlighted as much. We were taught that everybody is perfect. So everybody has a fatal flaw. I converted this tragic flaw into a fatal flaw. And I started analyzing my fatal flaw. And I was able to discover a lot. So, and everybody has that flaw. And I believe every entrepreneur has some flaw, which I think which should be taught. And if somebody can work on it, they'll make less number of mistakes and will be more successful. So I have gone through flaws and flaws and flaws.
So
how do we discover that fatal flaw for us?
Psychology says this. Like if you go through Jung, Freud, Adler, like much after Shakespeare's time, obviously, but we are all flawed, right? We're all insecure. We're all not altruistic, like we might like to believe at some level, or we might like to portray. There is one true us. There is one persona of us which we have created in our own mind, which we believe is not flawed. That persona. And we spend so much time and effort defending that persona and denying our flaw that it makes life more complicated, even for us and for people around us. So different people call it different thing. I think people like Jung and Adler call it our shadow. It is driven by many things, like your childhood has such a big impact on it. Like what you did between ages 3, 4 to 8, 9 will have so much to do with what your shadow is today. The financial condition of your parents, the relationship between your mother and father, your relationship with your siblings, and also innately how you're born as a person. So every psychology book kind of tells you that recognize your flaws. They in fact help you out by doing some categorization. They say this could be a certain kind of person, that could be a certain kind of person.
But Nikhil, this should be taught to entrepreneurs. And you can find, like I have a very simple philosophy of life, that music has 7, there are 5 primary colors, and there are 9 recorded emotions of human being. Life is not so complex. So if you look at the flaws of entrepreneurs, I think it can be defined very well. And there are people like me or many people like us who have made a lot of mistakes, and how can it be recorded and taught?
Especially for entrepreneurs, हमारा और एक problem ये है कि we all have gotten lucky in the cycle of life. See, we're all sitting here outside of because we've gotten very lucky, right? I mean, Vidit is brilliant, Sujeet is brilliant, you're brilliant, but at some level, luck has played a disproportionate part of how we arrived to be where we are today. But the problem, especially in startup crowds, is because somebody goes from A to Z in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 6 years, you don't start to take yourself so seriously, but the scale of everything you're saying and doing is so much bigger that what you were saying and doing 5 years ago today will be looked at through a completely different lens. So even for that reason, I think what he said is so true that we need to I know introspecting is the hardest thing in life maybe, but
And that's what I was going to ask. Like, how do you find these fatal flaws? I'm sure, like, you now have some ways.
After destruction, you can easily find it. Yeah. Secondly, you're open to it. I think we always created an organization which allowed dissent. So that was not the challenge. And secondly, we never kept along ourselves our echo chambers. Never in our life. So everybody knows your weakness. Everybody who's around you will know your weakness.
You should ask
They
them.
know how to. No, they will never tell you your weakness ever.
Yeah. But
So how do we get it out then?
खुद को introspection
I
करना
think the
पड़ेगा.
first thing to do is normalize having flaws. The problem with
Yes.
social media and anonymity, what it has done is people go out there and say about everybody. Like, one should not care, but in many cases you find yourself caring. But until we come to terms with the fact that you are flawed, Sujeet is flawed, he's flawed, I am flawed, until we realize that we each are, and then we realize that we all are, I think people will be scared and shy of coming out with their flaws.
By the way, I have one disagreement, which is I believe most entrepreneurs are very paranoid also. So they believe something's going to go wrong at all points in time. कि वो क्या है? And that's why I feel like if you tell them there's something wrong, I can do this, and basically fixing this would mean something will grow, and then all of that happens. But I generally feel people are.
This is not what the
मेरे को लगती है कि एक चीज जो
People are paranoid.
He's talking not about paranoia. He's talking, I'll give you an example.
No, he was saying, I'm saying, even if people don't want to acknowledge they could have flaws, I believe that is not true. I believe most people are paranoid. They just have blind side that no one exposes them to.
I'll give you an example of a flaw.
I think just I wanted to add to that point when he was saying that there are people, and as an entrepreneur, what you do, I focus so much on work, your circle gets shrinked, and then you are get surrounded by those people. You can say that might be they know, but they never wanted to share. Having those circles where people can tell you, it's very hard. It's very you can tell you, talk you frankly, or can give kind of feedback, some suggestion, and you should be open for that. Because if you give a reaction, those channel will going to close. I think those feedback channels are very important.
That's what.
But it's an investment. It's an investment. It automatically doesn't happen.
But every entrepreneur, I personally believe, can easily learn it. They are open to ideas and thoughts. So why not to this?
No, but sir, it's very hard when it comes to talk about, hey, somebody, every magazine, every corner, family member, for mother, father, everybody saying you are perfect. You are
Perfect कोई होता भी
नहीं, but उनको तो यही बोलते हैं ना. Suddenly एक बंदा बोल रहा है कि नहीं यार तेरा ना थोड़ा issue है. And your reaction control, that feedback will come again or not. If you give a different kind of reaction,
I think it's our education.
You are don't talk.
But our education also, look at Rama. Rama is the perfect human being.
Yeah, that's true.
But he was also flawed. No? It was all about righteousness or...
No, but कैसे जाना जाए? I think the question was कि how to control that.
People like, we have to go to... He understood the subject in 1 second. He added up 5 things more. There will be people like him who will... who can...
psychology is the best teacher. Like, I'll tell you personally, for me, right, in the last 3 years, I've stopped reading all books on finance, economy, which I used to spend time reading on growing up.
History and psychology.
I just do history and psychology. I keep telling him, like, it's incredible how you will start looking at yourself from a different lens. Because we all spend...
And mythology.
Totally, yeah.
I'm adding.
Yeah.
We took mythology as a subject, yeah.
Okay, to digress again. ONDC, who's going to explain it? Is it life-changing for anybody trying to build a product in e-commerce? What do you think will happen to ONDC going forward? I think you especially more than all people, because you have these tiny mom and pop kind of stores who come specifically sell on Meesho. Can you explain?
Yeah. So for people who don't know ONDC basically
We got a lesson today a little bit. Yeah.
About this meeting, when you were late, we were watching that.
Oh, acha. So I'm saying it's a government initiative trying to onboard all kinds of small businesses on a platform and make all kinds of small businesses, be it kirana, etc., basically come online and really unbundle the entire value chain. Right. I really believe the vision and the mission there is quite powerful because you still don't find any Panwadi, etc., selling products online around you. Right? Very, India has about 60 million small businesses, about million and a half only sell anything online. So now you can say eventually how many will do or don't do, I don't know. You look at Southeast Asia, e-commerce there started 4 years after India. About 15 million people who sell online just in Indonesia. India is still million and a half. So I think there's a problem to be solved. I hope that ONDC is the answer. We've integrated with them. Hopefully that will solve, but still very early.
In very simple words, like if you were to dumb it down for me, if I am a seller who makes soaps, ठीक है, मैं आज मीशो पे बेच रहा हूँ. After ONDC, how does my life change?
So I think it's more interop. So basically, they say it's like the UPI of e-commerce. It's supposed to be that, which is anyone, you can upload your catalog on any app and it'll start to appear on all other apps which are integrated with ONDC. So that's how it's supposed to be. It's an interoperable e-commerce platform.
आज तक मीशो में डाल रहा था. Tomorrow when I put my soap on Meesho, will it automatically show up on FlipKart?
It should, if everything is on ONDC. That's the goal.
So I want to ask you a question. So you all believe that कि इंडिया में मतलब अभी तक लोग भूखे प्यासे हैं, उनको कुछ नहीं मिल रहा है, जिनको ये उससे मिलने लग जाएगा.
I don't know.
ज़्यादा consumption हो जाएगा उससे.
Cash supply follows demand. The problem is this, right? The supply follows demand.
वहाँ पे ना.
हाँ, तो वही तो कह रहा हूँ कि जहाँ पैसा है वही तो कह रहा हूँ demand. So supply follows demand.
जिसको अब जो 200 SKU कंज्यूम करना है वो 200 SKU कहीं ना कहीं से उसको घर पे भी मिल जाएगा, कहीं ना कहीं मिल जाएगा. तो
I'll give you an example because this happens so gradually, na.
Consumption तो नहीं बढ़ेगा.
But this happens so gradually, people don't understand. But if you look at pandemic, where things happened like very quickly, right? So suddenly, for a year, nothing was selling offline. And you meet any small business in India, like people are like, oh shit, people used to come to me and say sell online and I did not do. And now I can't just put food on the table in my household, right? So I'm saying at that point in time, every small business in India realized they want to be online. And to some extent, by the way, informally, a lot of them are online because they sell on WhatsApp. So you can say that Panwadi also sends you whatever you want on a WhatsApp, right? Are they selling online? Maybe yes. But still, like quite hidden in some unstructured platforms, they haven't come online and they can't get access to a lot of demand that people who are selling online are getting to.
Like he was saying that it's a digitization. It's a digitization.
हाँ, तो होना है, but someone has to enable and somehow there have been lots of roadblocks that haven't enabled it.
तो let's assume हो जाता है.
हाँ.
जैसे मैं soap बेच रहा हूँ in Mysore. आज तक I only had a relationship with you at Meesho. तो मैं सिर्फ आपके platform पे बेच रहा था. Today suddenly the product shows up in Amazon, FlipKart, everywhere. How does the use case for an e-commerce platform change then? Because then Amazon has less control over what all products are listed under them.
Yeah, and that's the unique thing about it. A lot of those design principles haven't been thought of yet. Because everyone has a different supply chain, right? Like if everything is available everywhere,
and everything is the same.
Who stands for what? What does a brand stands for? Like, because everyone uses the same supply chain, so the product will come in the same amount of time. If everything comes the same amount of time, then how will Amazon build a different identity than anyone else? So the problem is, like, no one has thought about it. Even people who have designed it. Still very early. वहाँ तक पहुँचे नहीं है. So I don't know what will happen there. So it's
that's a fair explanation.
It's an idea.
Right? So, because if everyone is the same, then how do people stand for different things and why will you have multiple apps and then who will really do it?
And who will going to benefit?
And which is the big problem. Payments are same on every app. It's not that if I do payment with one app to the other, they stand for different things. Like payments is a commoditized one simple thing. Products are not. Like it's two different stores you go to cannot be exactly the same. They stand for different things, what they merchandise, what they talk about, what their marketing line is. They're very different things. So if you try to commoditize storefronts or marketplaces, it's never been done before. So how does it really come to life? No one knows. So I don't have a good answer to this question.
Even government is not very clear. They're trying, they're bringing the people together, but let's see, everybody have their own hidden agenda.
So India may investing into e-commerce. There aren't many opportunities. FlipKart is owned by Walmart. They're not listed here. One can argue you can buy Walmart shares in America, but that would diversify you too much. The only option I would say arguably is Nykaa, jahan you can get a piece of the e-commerce pie in India in the listed space. What do you guys think of Nykaa, the business model of Nykaa, and what do you think will happen to Nykaa going forward? I know they're your competition, but
No, we are not, by the way. Like, I believe it's a very different business. Like, we are a platform, they're a brand. So I think it's...
Are they a brand? Because they're distributing third-party products.
Yeah, but still they are a brand.
Their brand.
Because look at Amazon as a brand. It's a brand. FlipKart is a brand. Nykaa is a brand. Meesho is also a brand. They worked on building the brand. So
yeah, but my thing was like a lot of what they do offline, online, the kind of products they sell, a lot of products are exclusive. So basically...
But vast majority of what they sell,
Huh.
let's say they do 4,000 crores of business a year. Let's say 5% margin kind of business, operating margin or net margin 5%. But most of what they sell is third-party products that they are distributing.
So that's why I think my understanding of the business could also be limited. But from what I've seen, how they've approached it, a lot of that business has been built by getting supply that you won't get everywhere, right? So they've been much more focused on going very deep into that particular category and making it happen. If by the way, you can get the same supply that you have in Nykaa, you can get on Amazon and they'll ship like the next day. Why won't you buy from there? It should not happen, right? But it does not.
If somebody is buying, are they betting into the story of India 2 growing significantly and India 1 growing as well?
But the woman child is getting into beauty even in India too, in a very significant way. So there is some budget of the family going into beauty. Beauty as a category is also growing significantly.
That's actually a very interesting question.
But India too, by the way, in terms of beauty, ends up being lipstick, nail polish, or foundation.
But that's also three SKUs, not small.
But it's very...
3, 4, 5.
So how does one evaluate something like Nykaa? How does one benchmark? I'm asking because you both are in e-commerce. You've had FlipKart, Udaan, you have Meesho. If I'm an investor trying to figure out I should invest in the company, like I think Falguni is an exceptional entrepreneur. I know her, and I think if anybody can pull it off, it's possibly or likely her. She's had an exceptional past and great management and all of those things. But the broader question is, how big is the e-commerce pie in India? And are we betting, based on the valuations of whatever I mentioned, are we betting that India 1 and 2 will grow to X percentage in the next 5 years or 10 years? Is that the bet we are making?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, and I won't even attempt. But what I know is I don't think that company is a good representation of India e-commerce. Because it's very narrow in a category and very narrow in terms of the customer base they serve. Their average order value, if I remember, comes some 1,500, 1,800, 2,000, something like that.
It's not less here.
But it's not...
It's quite high. It's very high. So my point is, it's super high. So the segment exposure and category exposure cannot be a representation of the e-commerce market. That's what I believe.
Okay, let's talk about Meesho. Let's make it more interesting. What is your valuation today?
Valuation today? Our valuation, this is the last one, was about 5 billion.
Okay, and give us some metrics, like some numbers, and whatever is publicly available.
Yeah, something. We have about 14 crore people who buy from us every year, about 1 million small businesses. In the last 1 year, we did about 1 billion orders, which is about 100 crore. So about 100 crore orders in the last 12 months.
Those are insane numbers, by the way. Right? 14 crore people buying, huh?
Yeah, and by the way, we sell across. So horizontal platform, people come and sell anything they want. So about half is apparel and half is non-apparel. And that includes kids, beauty, personal care, your electronics,
so
home and kitchen.
Like the gross sales that happen on...
Yeah, so about like last 2020 calendar year was about 4.5 quarter to 5 billion. So which is last year.
And what is the margin on the top level. Out of this 5 billion you sell, on average, how much margin do you have?
उसके नीचे मत जा यार, बस हो गया. Why do you want to open my P&L in front of me here right now?
Right.
I think इनका ticket size का challenge आता है ना,
हाँ.
dealing with that kind of customers.
Right, but ticket size कम होगा ना?
320. And I'm saying that's the problem we have to solve. Like,
That's the biggest problem.
Correct.
What would that be for FlipKart?
Would be much higher. Again, 1200, 1300, maybe higher. Because वहाँ पर वो electronics, mobile phone takes the average order value quite high.
Plus Myntra है तो उनका बहुत ज़्यादा है.
We didn't answer.
So integrated that.
We didn't answer the Nykaa thing. What are the final thoughts on a company like Nykaa? Because I don't have another listed player in mind.
What's your interest?
No, I said I don't know about the company, but I don't believe it represents India e-commerce. But
that's okay. I believe it's picked up the right category at the right time, and secondly, they build their own strength of the content to commerce. I think it was a very interesting way they built it. There are negatives that they have attracted attention and too many players are coming in. They need to build their own brand in the ecosystem, which they might be doing. They went into too many things now. They went into B2B. But I was surprised that even I never thought that beauty and fashion as an adjacency will work as much. But Nykaa is not doing bad on fashion.
Yeah. They just launched that Aloe Yoga, no? They're distributor for it. Killing it, that brand abroad.
It's doing reasonably quite okay. So if they are able to build adjacencies, it becomes an interesting story.
I think one thing you have to give it to them, as a Nykaa, they have built the business with the discipline, unit economy, so that they are going to market, and definitely the market believes in their IPO. Like everybody, they're still holding up very high, given the comparison to their revenue. I think only problem is how to expand their TAM. Is it the similar, because the category they are in, it's already niche and built as a commerce. So it's very hard to say that it's a full-fledged e-commerce. I will not call it as a platformized e-commerce. It's a vertical. Definitely they are building other verticals also, adjacency, but it's a difficult journey. Let's see.
If I had to figure out let's say I have 100 rupees to invest and I want to invest in e-commerce. किस पे bet लगाना चाहिए? Next.
ये अभी है नहीं, आएगा, I feel. Because even now more and more of what's gonna come in the public markets, what people say is, Nykaa hai, now a first cry, someone who's saying will go public, will be very similar. One sector, certain
do you think that'll be the key curation with ONDC, with many platforms?
No, I think that's why what's happening is these value adding brands are going online, platforms will come. And I don't know, both the other platform, Walmart and Amazon, they will list in India, unlikely. So hopefully we will do it at some point in time.
Right.
But I feel like that the e-commerce exposure that you keep referring to, unless you take parts of all of them and say, yaar, sab karke, at least we'll have some exposure. Otherwise, all of them are very...
आप देखोगे Jio है, they have a big aspiration. So although Tata, Noon है, कुछ कर रहे हैं, अभी तो वो भी हो ही रहा है ना.
Should I be in e-commerce, or is the market too saturated?
It's a career.
To start a platform?
As a career.
Start a platform or to be a merchant?
E-commerce, there's no other option but to be a part of it.
Yeah. I think being part of e-commerce, the only way is not to be a platform, right?
Yeah.
Now, all the D2C brands are part of e-commerce.
Yeah, they're all e-commerce.
And everyone, so the beautiful thing that has happened because of e-commerce platforms is now personalization and localization that can happen, it was not possible ago. So now people are finding very niche and basically serving them. So you only get discovered with a particular search term and people buy you again and again. So I'm saying lots of these micro D2C brands are possible. So I'm saying being part of e-commerce, everything that you do around selling digital products is being part of e-commerce. And I believe it will only accelerate because there's no other way anymore.
Hamari dunya mein, right? Especially us three living in Bangalore, we're all products of a startup bubble which started last decade. And I think, to be fair, we were talking about knowing your flaws, I think we're cognizant to the fact that we are byproducts of a startup bubble. What happens to e-commerce once the deep discounting in a way, or the marketing money which was funded by cheap cost of capital abroad goes away? Like, how do things change? Let's say there is no funding available for growth for Indian e-commerce companies in the next 3 years, and they have to survive with the money they have left. How does each one change?
In my mind, it's a very hypothetical question. But I think, look, when you are building a business, you know that this much money you need. Let's say plus minus, you can say that. I think only you can say that, hey, growth is the right matrix. If you are growing, then investing money, even though, let's say, profitability comes after, let's say, 4 or 5.
I don't agree. I don't agree.
Hear me out. Hear me out. I understand. But if you are with those unit in your boundaries, you are capturing the market share and growing. I think I am in that kind of a student where I'll support that. But burning money and hurting the company, like you burn money, you get the GMB. But your unit economics not holding. You should not do that.
But
because it will kill your company.
But you're also making an assumption that this tap is open where you continue to get money to burn money.
But by the way, unit economics, I also feel like, why unit economics, why not EBITDA?
I'll tell you why. And it's a great thing. Of course, EBITDA. Everybody is aiming for EBITDA. I'm not contesting that.
So I'm saying if that has to be positive, ideally you should make money.
Some cohort, let's say, growth is an important matrix also.
That's the problem. I've been a growth story in a way, and I don't think that holds true. Because I'll tell you why. I'll explain you why. After a point, the growth comes at an extraordinary cost.
And that's what I'm saying, that we should not do that if it's coming.
मालूम ही नहीं पड़ेगा आपको. आपको मालूम ही नहीं पड़ेगा. You will be lost in that journey of growth. You want it at any cost. You want to be the leader in this category and the space which you belong to.
I think that is so true.
But sir,
many people.
By the way, I believe, so my opinion is there are multiple things. There are one stage of the business, especially in e-commerce, you need to cross a critical mass
that growth
of scale.
Is required.
And unless you get there, if you try to become profitable too soon, you get into a negative spiral.
It's okay.
So, because people take the same lesson, apply across stages. I don't believe it works. So you have to get to critical mass, but after that, I believe you need to be profitable.
Of course, I'm not.
Right? So, our goal is, I think by the end of this year, we'll become profitable. Because, like, ab nahi karenge to kab karenge, right? You have 5 billion of sales now, make sure that the business becomes profitable. But if I tried to do it 4 years ago, I would have made a big blunder.
So, Nikhil, I have a very interesting take on technology. So, I always believe that technology does 3 or 4 things, which different from the traditional or the old economy. One, it reduces space, reduces time, and creates social interactions. And like in fashion business, on digital commerce, you can do 10 stock turns, where in physical, you can't do more than 3.5. You can work with less number of people. You can introduce a lot of processes. And then social interaction is something digitally you can build a lot and acquire customers at a much lower cost than what physical. Because in physical, the old economy used to advertise for everybody. Here you can target, you can do a lot. So it has a lot of advantages. Anybody who will take advantages of all these things will going to be the winner. And constraint can create companies.
Yeah, of course.
And lastly, I also believe that unless you don't have X amount of value addition done, you are not in a business only.
Yes. But in e-commerce also, if you'll see a scaled business, these are scaled business, and that's why I was not able to answer on the Nykaa, because I was not imagining where the scale will come from. Because supply chain, the same thing goes on, because those are the principles where more and more scale you can reduce the cost. I think building those capabilities where sourcing is a big thing in e-commerce. Let's say, and
but retailing is sourcing.
No, but sourcing. If I'll crack sourcing, and definitely I'm not talking about the going and doing that math on sourcing rather than buying, keeping that inventory, and then distributing and saving the money. I think that's a loose math, and it will only come on certain scales when you involved on the production side of it.
Interesting. Any final words for anybody looking to get involved in e-commerce? Final thoughts? सोचो मैं 20 साल का लड़का हूँ बैंगलोर में, कॉलेज खत्म हुआ है, ई-कॉमर्स में काम करना है. Thoughts?
So when I look at D2C brands, it was D2C brands are something like you are living in a neighborhood and you opened a shop. I think you start from there and from there you grow and open to a much. It allows you to open to a much larger audience. So that's the way forward. You can't now go and open a shop below your building here. It's great to get into digital commerce, and if you're lucky and if you do well, if you're passionate, I think it's a great business to be in.
No, I believe there's no other way, right? So I believe, as I think we started in the beginning, the definitions between e-commerce, commerce, offline commerce are getting blurred more and more. So if you want to do anything in commerce, you have to basically figure out how to make e-commerce work. This holds true for anyone who's starting a business today. So I think if you want to create value, I think you will become a part of this. So I think instead of asking, should I become part of this? Question is, what do I need to do to really become successful at this? And I believe that will happen. Like social, figuring out influencers, figuring out everything else, figuring out marketplaces.
I think the contrary, it has integrated them. Because you get the same product, same thing. Earlier, when people defined that when offline, hey, you'll get something in Delhi or in Mumbai or in big cities, you'll not get in tier 2 or in... Now, e-commerce made it, every product is available everywhere.
We all agreed that's become a very relevant part, right? Figuring out
Very big.
social to sell anything.
So I think if you are doing commerce, online will happen for sure. Some people will do hybrid as well. But I'm also seeing, so for example, 40% of sellers on Meesho are online only sellers. They don't sell anywhere else. So they became entrepreneurs for the first time because they figured out, hey, I can go on this platform. I know how to merchandise well, how to price well, how to figure out what trends work on this marketplace and so on. So people are creating businesses, basically. So I think that will happen more and more. Lots of online native sellers will come and they would have never known what does it mean to sell offline.
I believe, let's say, I can only finding the similarity when we have started, let's say 2007, 2008. The internet at that time was not even the main channel. Only 8 million people having the broadband and the internet access at that time, 2008. But I think taking that punt as the internet is a most powerful thing, and people have evolved. Like social, I believe the 20-year guy who understands much better than me, and because when we have to learn, talk to him. And finding commerce definitely doesn't matter which channel, but it will going to happen and adopted in a most evolving way. I believe the social influencers and all are a great channel. How to get use of that in, look, I'm not talking about supply chain, I'm not talking about inventory, those are given. If you wanted to transport one physical goods, those will come into play. And somewhere it's solving or solved, it's evolving in own pace. But getting into the consumer side of it, where the consumer's minds are, be part of that and see how one can be do those commerce transaction, how to influence. I think that's the advice. And new channels already are emerging.
Super.
Great.
Thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kishore, Vidit, and Sujeet.
Thanks.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks for hosting us.
Great.
Hi, I'm Nikhil. Thank you for watching the podcast. Let us know who your favorite guest has been and who you'd like to watch next. Thank you.